What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, arm yourselves, life stuff. It ended up being a flu, and I'm coming out of it now, so we will try to keep this video on track. We're talking about manhood today, the social construct, instead of masculinity or calling it masculinity, because that word makes me want to vomit. You are instructed to view masculinity as this self empowering thing, but that's on the social construct level. What I think masculinity or manhood actually is a work or responsibilities delegation construct we developed not out of theory but out of necessity. And that's why you'll see all these dudes dressing the way they're told to dress, grooming themselves the way they're supposed to be groomed, and going on and on about what it means to be a man and responsibility and all this, while acting like pussy man children. Because they're looking at masculinity the way they have been instructed to look at masculinity. It's a great thing for the status quo that you are a pussy man child. The two, or the three actually, descriptors commonly of masculinity: self empowering, desirable, and a choice. They view masculinity as this level one must work hard on themselves in the way they're instructed to become powerful for themselves. So they can do whatever it is they want to do, as long as what they do falls in line with the moral instructive side of the manosphere, which is another word that makes me want to vomit. And that's why you see them posture so much. That's why in these upscale urban malls, there are these rustic men's shops. They're why dad gifts exist. You are such a chihuahua, you are terrified of people mistaking you for not a dog. That's why they have a particular idea of how one should look, or how a masculine man should look and act. And that is dressing like a fairy, a Carhartt fairy, if you will. And that's also why they cultivate a selection of masculine hobbies. I smoke cigars, even though I don't enjoy them. I forged a knife that I will never use for anything other than opening boxes. I built a man cave that has been decorated with the utmost care, informed by the most masculine home decorators. It's a boy's fantasy that in general drives consumption, but in particular keeps a bunch of clever people who know how to sell ideas. Shit, they aren't even selling you products, they're selling you ideas, keeps them well fed. In contrast, all of this in contrast with the things I'm beginning to see and think regarding manhood. Because manhood is not fun, it's not empowering, and you, the person stuck in manhood now, are the least important component of manhood. It is utterly dehumanizing and disempowering. It's not about you, it's about the people who rely on you. It's not desirable, and it's not a choice. It's manhood. Being a man is like realizing you are caught in a bear trap. And I say that, or I frame it like that, and I still contend masculinity and manhood are social constructs. I mean, they've been associated with genders in earlier times by necessity, but even back then, not necessarily, because it's responsibility that you are unequipped for and unprepared for, and probably don't want. An 8-year-old boy with only sisters and a mother, father now dead. Oh God, might get caught in the manhood bear trap. Or in that same family, let's imagine. The boy does not get caught in the manhood bear trap. One of the sisters, a little girl who just happens to be a little bit more competent than the rest, gets caught in the manhood bear trap. It's not a choice. It's not desirable. And it has nothing to do about self-actualization or your tender identity. It is all about responsibility. Things that need to get done that, for all intents and purposes in your situation, might not have doers. I'm the man is not by itself a good feeling. It's more like a horror movie realization. If this thing doesn't get done, then people are going to suffer and nobody else is doing it. I have to do it. Oh shit. God damn it, you tricked me. Now I'm the man. And manhood is disempowering because you're never ready for that. Even if you've been doing it for a while and have made preparations and developed whatever skills, nobody's prepared for that. Because manhood basically is or means taking up arms to fight the chaotic world on behalf of people who can't or won't for themselves and will almost always, in fact, not understand what you're doing or why you're doing it, not appreciate what you're doing or why you're doing it, and actively hinder your ability to do what you're doing, which is taking care or fighting on behalf of people who don't know. Do you have time to fluff your ego and prune your persona? These lame-ass men teachers pump out lame-ass men because it's a money-making game for loser dudes. You don't choose manhood, and I don't think you can teach manhood because there isn't a universal standard beyond the simpler stuff or the baseline stuff we went over. Different situations need different quotes men or different things from quotes men. Necessity will teach you what's required right now. It'll make you an expert in what's required right now. But what's required right now won't be what's required tomorrow. And what's required is almost never a beard, retro tattoos, a spiffy haircut, and a plaid shirt. Some women, especially certain black women, are better men than most men are, but they won't be acknowledged as such because it would give a Bert Kreischer type or an Andrew Tate type or a Jordan Peterson type a heart attack, either for or in regard to their hedge-like ego or more realistically for their income. Low-level dudes are more the hedge types because their income isn't at risk. They're giving their income away to learn how to prune their hedge better. And I was thinking about this. Why are so many young dudes, as in, let's say 16 to 23, so obsessed with women and unable to get what they want from women? As if manhood has anything to do with sticking your dick in anything deserving. That word. We talked about that a little while ago. I think it's because young dudes have or most young dudes have no idea what's going on, meaning they haven't been properly attacked yet, so they don't know where their priorities should be. So they fluff themselves up into what they think a man is, and they're very confident about this fluffed up ideal, and then they feel they're deserving of pleasure from women. I think that's what's going on. Whereas in reality, if you're a bio unit, gratification is the last thing on your mind. What you think you should be doesn't matter, or what you think other men or women should be doesn't matter, because all that matters is what you need to be in order to hopefully pray to God be able maybe to deal with the thing that attacked you once and fucked you up and is coming to attack you again and will never stop attacking you until you die. Except now you've been tricked into being nominated as the dumb motherfucker who has to worry about other people in addition to yourself. And participating in that arms race against reality can feel good, it can feel empowering, but it comes at the cost of what you want, with no thanks and no reward. Unless you want to spec into that hidden skill tree and learn how to take rewards while you're participating in this cunting arms race. But the troubling part is you're never really equipped. You're as equipped as you can be if you're trying, but as good as you can be is never enough. I'll use a RimWorld example. Perfect example. So there are difficulty levels, and then there are storytellers. Difficulty is basic difficulty, how hard things are, or what sort of threats you can expect to face. Storytellers determine which events you're thrown at, or are thrown at you, and when. My first colony back, hadn't played in years, was difficulty community builder, which is one up from baby mode no difficulty, and Phoebe Chillax as the storyteller, the quotes easy mode storyteller. She gives you lots of time, she's very generous. But warning, at higher difficulty levels, she hits as hard as anyone else, which is a lie. She'll hit as hard as anyone else on the lowest difficulty levels, and in fact, because of the way she generates or she story tells, she'll hit harder than everybody else if you're talking about singular crises. Because the more time that passes and the more, quotes, wealth you develop, and wealth could be anything from actual wealth to colonist ability to fight or do this or that, they develop raid budgets or crisis budgets. They spend this budget to fuck with you. And that's ironically why Randy Random, he's presented as the hard option, but he's actually the fairest. Because he's random, and he consistently spends his budget. So he might dick you with multiple raids at once. Shit, Randy, that's not fun. But it's all in line. He's venting. Versus Phoebe. She'll spend 2 years not fucking with you at all. And then, at the very end of that second year, at the exact moment you don't want it to happen, she'll hit you with everything. Your generators and batteries explode, so your defenses have shut down and you have massive fires. Half your colonists get food poisoning, major, and the plague, and intestinal parasites, all at once, and it just so happens the ones who get sick are your fighters and your medics. And thanks, Phoebe, there's a cold snap. We live in an equatorial desert. What do you think a cold snap would be? Do you think it's maybe like 10 degrees below freezing or even 20? No, it's 40 degrees below freezing. And here are 5 raids composed of 10 each, or 10 raiders each. So you're dealing with 50 dudes and you have a colony of like 6 people, and you weren't fighting because you weren't, this is relevant to our discussion. You weren't preparing for 50 dudes. You wanted to have a cute little life. You weren't prepared for it. And people have to die if you want this, or if you want to move further. See, what's beautiful about Randy is if you get a raid you find unfair or don't want to deal with, you can reload to just before that raid, and you'll get something completely different because he's random. I mean, you will pay for it later, that budget is still building, but you don't have to participate in the blood sacrifice right now. Whereas with Phoebe, you can reload to just before that raid 100 times, and each of those 100 times, and she's clever, she's a bastard. She'll come up with, because it's the beautiful, I will say she's a beautiful storyteller. It's never just simply overwhelming you. She'll come up with 100 ways of fucking you in ways you could have prevented. She mocks you for getting comfortable, and her raids of love show you in so many ways why you're stupid for being comfortable and why you should have been doing more. Now, she is a bastard because if you tried to prepare in every reasonable way, she'll hit you with all the ways you should have prepared in unreasonable ways, but that's life. That's life, and that's what we're talking about. It's your sole responsibility to tango with the angel of death in a fight you are maybe led to believe you think you can win, but you can't. Because there's no way to prepare for the cruelty of reality. Totally. And that's just for yourself. How crushing is it to realize you are responsible for other people and you can't step up for them? Masculinity is not empowering. It's not self-empowering. It is communal horror and disempowerment. And everyone will have to suffer the crises, but it's your responsibility to prepare for them and worry about them and stay up at night unable to sleep about them. And then get shit when you're making preparations, get shit when you're taking actions, and then get shit when those actions don't go well. They were calling you stupid this entire time, saying you don't know what you're talking about, you're unequipped to deal with this, and the fuckedest thing of all is they're right. You are unequipped for this, but you're doing the best you can because nobody else is going to step up. What's another person going to do when they get a taste of the shit they're being protected from? They're going to sit down and they're going to cry about the idea of it, not even having to deal with it. And now weaving back into the social construct side of things, I think we perceive manhood and womanhood as gendered roles because back in the day, in society at large, men were better suited for the manhood role and women were better suited for the womanhood role. But even back then, there's an awareness these, quotes, gender roles are more responsibilities roles, survival roles, or terror roles. Because what is a man going to do if he needs to nurse and nurture a child. Is he going to say no? Well, I'm sure plenty would, but that feeds into my argument that most males aren't men, and never will be. Like that fucking punk who wouldn't wash dishes at his adoptive mother's restaurant because women wash dishes. You little fucking thing. You little hole. I'll make you a hole. If the circle of necessities fall or typically fall under the woman umbrella, but a man needs to do them outside, popping out the child and breastfeeding it, which I think men actually can breastfeed in certain circumstances, not that you would want to, but he's going to do what needs to be done. Adapt to these fucked up circumstances as best as one can. Same with women. If defense or offense work needs to be done, if calloused shit needs to happen, or if physically demanding shit needs to happen, and there isn't a more equipped person around to do it, the woman's going to step up. These needs are not gendered by default. They just exist. And if you don't deal with them, something bad is going to happen. They got gendered out of practicality, and then those roles that came out of those needs, out of that practicality, became totally divorced from the needs themselves. That's why you have these lame dudes all over the place, and why modern feminism is trying to... It's so fucked the way this is happening. It is kind of funny, though. Pushing women into these already lameified roles. It's not that a woman Doom guy is lame, it's that Doom guy is lame. Or whatever they're calling him now. Because that sort of concept, or that sort of thing, is abstracted so far away from the need that originally would have spawned it. And you see this mechanic happening on or in different spheres, not necessarily in the gendered ways. Like this glorification of the warrior thing. That's tricky because you should be able or know how to defend yourself or hurt people, but then you see it abstracted away from the reality into a bunch of trite sayings or phrases or moral codes to get people to enlist, and then you introduce them to the reality. You aren't not hating what's in front of you but loving what's behind you. You're either doing paperwork or trying not to get shot or blown up once you realize that can actually happen to you. You aren't invincible, while trying to ensure you get your money and your benefits. But boy howdy, doesn't that saying feel good to say. And isn't that good for recruitment and social capital? But you gotta keep the slaves in line somehow. And it's so insidious the way this shit works. And I love working on videos without scripts because you find your way into things. What does it cost you to keep the slaves in line? Slogans. You don't have to pay them to keep them in line. All you have to do is give them a phrase that sounds good coming out of your mouth, coming out of their mouths, and they'll keep themselves in line. I give you some words, you take a bullet in the head for me. You dumb motherfucker. Anyway, this video has gone a bit longer than I was expecting, but there were two final aspects to this I wanted to talk about. I have a lot of respect for gay men sometimes, and I have a lot of respect for lesbians sometimes. What is that sometimes, and why do I respect it so much? Well, on the gay men side, generally, delegation of responsibilities. Even these responsibilities, these needs, these are things that need to get done. With or without an equal number of men or women. So if there were an entire community of men, there would be woman-coded jobs that still needed to get done. Same with women. So with gay men, the difficulty is, how do you be a man for a man? Well, clearly, the easy option is for one of the partners to sissify themselves, or rather volunteer to go even lower, or you get dudes who are capable of reaching even higher than they should, or should need to. Superman. You fight and claw your way higher so your partner doesn't need to go lower. And then I think you see something similar with select lesbians. I think the whole butch thing is a natural reaction to realizing you just stepped in the manhood bear trap. Oh shit. You thought these were gendered needs and therefore wouldn't need them because you're both women, but shit, these are just needs-ass needs that are traditionally filled by men. Your partner isn't stepping up, so it falls to you. So you don the tools of the trade, or the tools of the role. You get butchy, because you think that will make filling this role easier. Which it might. If I'm sounding negative on butchy stuff, I'm not. That bear trap is a son of a bitch. Do whatever you gotta do. But then you have lesbians who are stuck, or got stuck with manhood, and decided not to sacrifice their femininity while learning and performing masculinity. And if you can figure out how to do that, or develop the will to do that, it's a dangerous operator. And I think the reason on power levels charts I put these sorts of lesbians above the other sort of gay men we discussed is you're figuring out how to do Y without forfeiting X, whereas with the gay man, you're just mastering Y as high as you can. There's no balancing going on. And then in addition to that, they're like a living proof of concept. It's possible for you to engage in these challenges at all, and it's possible for you to get good at them without sacrificing what you are. Because you don't need to be something you aren't to deal with a problem. It might be easier to deal with a problem if you weren't you, but you are you, and this is a problem, and if you don't want to step up to the problem, are you comfortable letting somebody else step up to the problem? Both putting all that weight on them and being vulnerable yourself. Because if that's what you want to do, it's pretty hard to respect you. And to close out, no summary this time, but driving the point home, manhood is not about you. It's about everybody else. And it works in degrees, too. I'm not married. I don't have children. The minuscule amount of manhood I'm caught up in keeps me up at night. It's not fun. It's not outfits. It's not hobbies. It isn't even men or age necessarily. It's an ugly, painful bear trap. Chains assigned to you because you suck a little less than somebody else. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.